Hello, welcome back to episode 4 of Chit Chat. I am in fact still here, and I know a bit of a weird title, and I honestly, it was to the point where I thought it was kind of wrong to leave the audio on for such a, so I decided to mute it for this episode, if that's cool. And today we are in fact talking about what's in the title. So if you are sensitive to that, or if you don't feel like listening to that, by all means, click off. You can see the new Mr. Beast video or whatever's going on. But otherwise, if you choose to stay, hello. I have not too much to say on this topic because I feel like my episodes are only getting longer and longer, but I do feel like I wanted to talk about this. I was really on the floor of, my old Shake Shack, and I was wondering what I wanted to talk about, and I decided that with my odd ideology that I'll get into later, that maybe this will be a little interesting. So we're gonna resort to this. So to start off, I've always been pretty indifferent. I'll just get that out of the way right now. I'm fairly indifferent to a lot of things that goes on in my life, like but grandparents passing away, because thankfully my parents are both still alive, but grandparents passing away, I don't really even bat an eye. Well, of course I do bat an eye, and yes, I do feel bad, but I can't really cry to a lot of things. Not to say that I haven't cried before, but more often than not, I just end up, staring idly at the wall during whatever breakdown or thing would occur. It would just, from the outside, it would just look like I am, malfunctioning, but never, anything that has to do with, actual crying or, crawling up in an infant pose and just, like that sort of thing. And what that can be attributed to, I have not the slightest clue, but point is, I'm pretty indifferent to this sort of thing, which is why I don't know, which is why I end up seeking media or whatever that would make me, cry, I guess, in that sense. I think the only thing that was closest to that was Everywhere at the End of Time, but I don't really count that, because that wasn't really sadness, that was more just paranoia, because I was scared shitless about Alzheimer's and all that. If you haven't watched it, you honestly should give it a go one summer break, but that aside, I've always been very intrigued to go into more logistics. I love psychological little endeavors, if you know what I mean, or in the form of literature, exploring mental illness and all that stuff. Not to say that I am the most versed, which I will admit, but I can admit that I do have a fascination toward that sort of thing. It's always been tropes and novels I would make and stuff. But to put it more personally, I don't know if it really fits the archetype or stereotype or whatnot, but I guess I can always say I've had a pretty straightforward life, though it is not the most high earning or high anything. I do kind of, one of my bragging points is the fact that I know exactly what I want to do until the very end. I know exactly when I wanted to enroll. I know my college situation, my GPA is pretty good, so I have no doubts about that, and I know exactly where I want to go, what I want to be, and I've had this confidence for years now. Even back in in middle school, I would be like, okay, I have this plan, and I'm gonna flesh it out, and I did flesh it out, and then, oh, I'm good now. So just to make it clear, I want to be a Japanese teacher, and I want to, serve in America and be a Japanese teacher all the way until the ends. And as I said, it's a lot. I consider it a bragging right. I do feel bad for those who don't know what they want to do for a job, for example, or don't know their purpose if they choose to want one. But yeah, there's not much there. But I guess in having a straightforward life, one can argue that it's all mundane in a sense. That there's no thrill, there's no risk to it. But I guess it really just depends on personality. I am not a fan of taking risks. So this is just what I end up choosing. Moving back to episode 1, I talked a lot about how middle school me would write journals and stuff, and the whole thing where Dr. Paul Coppola was a piece of shit and that sort of thing. But something I failed to acknowledge, and I don't really know why, is that on my birthday is a special tradition of mine, because not only do I take it seriously to the point where, funny gifts and all that, but I consider it a checkpoint in my heart. Like, that is the year in which I drop everything. I open Google Docs or whatever I had on the time. It would be notebooks back then, and I would write something called chapter, and then I would write my age, for example. And so yeah, that's basically what I did since I was 10, I guess. Can't really go too far back in the chapter tradition, but nevertheless, it was one of my biggest traditions for my birthday, which is probably one of the main things I actually look forward to as well, and that sort of thing. But there was a lot that I'd put on there. A lot of my class sucks, I'm doing horrible in algebra or so and so. But also, I would talk about the future an awful lot in the little pages that I signed myself. I would always give myself like specifically 1 hour to open the Google Docs, spill everything on my mind, and that's it. It was almost like a ritual. So yeah, I have kept doing that since, and I am pretty much almost done. Or not done. Well, I mean, I did mine for this year. Sorry, done is way more ominous than I want it to sound. But I don't know. I tell myself not to look back on any of the older ones until it is my birthday. That is the only time in which I will allow myself to look back on that sort of thing. And that is pretty much what it was. But a common theme in there is that indifference that I was mentioning earlier, where like something bad would happen and then I would go to the document expecting to spill tears and words, but in reality I would just go on the page and be like, oh, this happened, hopefully it's like this now. And especially like back then and like the older ones, it would be very like, it would almost be like a report. Like not so much so as like a future journal to like my future selves. It would be more like just like, oh yeah, so this happened, as if I didn't like already, as if I couldn't like recollect that. Like what I was aiming for was the feelings of it, and like how I felt and how I could look back at the feelings of whatever's occurred, and compare and contrast to the feelings of now, just like how I mentioned in episode 1, for example. But there was none of that. It was just factual information, things that if I wanted to replicate of my younger self, I would do it easily. And that kind of pissed me off a lot, especially when it came to the biggest thing, because let's not forget the title of the video here. Starting from 11 years old, I had one big, like I know I said I'm indifferent to that sort of thing, but that was one of, if not, definitely one of the only times that I had a breakdown in the type where I'd like start like, almost like drenching in my own tears in my bed sheets and stuff like that. All the way back when I was 11, of like, I'm gonna age, I'm gonna get wrinkly, and I'm gonna, that's so weird. I don't want to. I want to be young forever. Immortality is an ideal ideology, and but ever since that, it was just like straightforward, I suppose. But starting from that little thing that occurred, and me formulating my plan for life, I made a promise to myself, and I still go through that promise nowadays. I don't plan on ever switching it up, at least not right now. And do I have hopes that I will continue to stick by it? Probably not in the grand scheme of things, but it is the truth. And that truth is that when I am 70, and I made the number abundantly clear, when I am 70, I do want to, I do want to end things, like, right off the bat. Oh, either euthanasia or, whatever the case. And I don't encourage this, let me be clear. Not only do I not want to get, a lawsuit, not that that would ever occur, but, like, also, you probably shouldn't follow this. This is kind of just, like, my own set of values that are unique to me, and, you make your own opinions, of course. But I had this like plan from the get-go that, oh, the second I am 70, I'm out. And I think the immediate thing there is the whole, oh, well, dying is going to be not only painful because of whatever, thing is going to happen, but also miserable, because whatever children or whoever you can visit at that point, no matter what, you're basically gonna be alone most of the time. And that is not something that I would like to fathom personally. But it's just a matter of, like, those last few years I already assume is going to be incredibly miserable, so I feel like that with this 70 plan and whatnot, that I can focus on making the most of it, assuming I had, a time limit that I could stick on, because there are a lot of things I would like to accomplish from before then. I have, as much as I do want to do Japanese teaching, novel writing will always be at the center of my heart. I fucking love writing novels and all that stuff, and hopefully by then I won't be one of those starving artists or authors that end up, writing or wanting or having not uploaded their magnum opus. And obviously the ideals of magnum opuses are technically incorrect, because you really shouldn't think of it that way, especially from what I've heard. But especially when it comes to the psychology aspect of it, this must be like the 15th time I've referenced my AP Psych class. Thank you, Miss Anastasiadis, for having interesting material. But when, like, later in life, and this is up to Piaget's stage theory, they talk a lot about the moral ladder. Like when you're 12 years old, you think all about like competition and all that stuff, and if you don't get over these little battles, you could have a crisis later in life, like all about superiority versus inferiority, and they really just shape you as a person. But especially later in life, what they highlight is, if I remember correctly, I'm sorry, is all about integrity versus despair, and all about like you'll live those final years of your life like not only preparing for death, but like wondering and like looking back on everything and seeing if you accomplished what you wanted to, and if you didn't, that's like a whole crisis in itself. So while I am sticking to this idea, I do want to be clear that I am open to, if you want to go in the comments and tell me how, like, that I probably shouldn't think of it that way, by all means. But I don't know. I guess if I had a fulfilled life, then yeah, why not? But at the end of the day, I think the whole aspect of just waiting and sitting at your bed for the final day to come is probably one of the worst feelings, and I would rather just, end it early. So yeah, that's depressing. So I do want to have a bit of commentary just to not make it so edgy, because I feel like this is already a pretty dense episode. Honestly, no matter what, even if you have a similar, oh my fucking god, even if you have a similar ideology, or even if you don't, I respect it either way. Or honestly, I know that my ideology is flawed, so I want to make that abundantly clear, but still not flawed enough for me to change my opinion, unfortunately. So for advice, I guess just remember that no matter what happens, it could be like a breakup, or like, you failed this massive test that you had for years or whatever. Just know that chances are you're probably like me. You're 17. You're just kind of like, you're taking it all head first when you really shouldn't. Because you have so much life ahead, and honestly, at the end of the day, it's all about putting one foot in front of the other and putting one day in front of the other, until eventually the whole one step at a time thing, you have forever, my guy. You'll honestly be fine. Just this whole thing until forever is your learning phase, and fuck it, dude. Just honestly, just seek out the situations that have occurred, or the friends you've made, and so on and so forth, and just remember that your youth is a learning experience at the end of the day, even though it may not be, academic or whatnot. This was a bit of a shaky episode, not in the sense of like it's overly, but probably in what I'm trying to convey, because there is a message there, but if it did end up getting construed in edginess, I apologize from the bottom of my heart. And yeah, that should sum up chit chat for tonight. So thank you again for listening to this. I hope whatever you're doing, it goes well, and I promise, pinky promise, I'm not moving my keyboard, my pinky's out to your invisible hand, that tomorrow's episode will definitely be a little more lighthearted. So okay, yeah, no, I really don't want to end it there. I was playing guitar at the beginning of the video, but you know what? I have 5 hearts in game. I haven't defeated the boss yet. I'm just gonna... You know what? Whatever. Have a lovely night, everyone.